The illusion of power often paints a picture of camaraderie, where leaders bask in the company of allies, friends, and supporters, all cheering them on. The throne may appear inviting, and the crown might seem like a shared burden, but the truth is far more stark. What if I told you that the path to power is paved with solitude? As one ascends the ladder of power, the reality becomes chillingly clear. The higher you rise, the more isolating your position becomes. It's not merely a byproduct of ambition, it's a necessity for survival. Those who fail to establish boundaries risk a devastating downfall. In this unforgiving landscape, the true fortifications are not made of stone and steel, but are built from silence, distance, and strategic maneuvering. This wisdom, whispered by Machiavelli to princes 5 centuries ago, remains relevant today, guiding CEOs, politicians, and military leaders alike. So, why do the most powerful individuals find themselves in solitude? If you appreciated this deep, investigative dive into the unknown, hit the like button. If you need a constant source of profound questions and scientific puzzles, subscribe now to secure your access. It's not a sign of emotional detachment or a lack of connection. Rather, it's a profound understanding of the game they're playing. Trust, in this arena, is a luxury that can lead to ruin. Consider this. When was the last time you witnessed a leader, a billionaire, or a general genuinely laughing in the company of equals? Not the staged smiles or scripted interactions, but authentic joy and vulnerability. The reality is, you seldom see it at the pinnacle of power. You might find this notion disheartening, but remember, sorrow does not guarantee survival. Strategy does. Machiavelli didn't pen his treatise to promote kindness. He crafted it as a survival guide for those who refuse to end up as mere footnotes in history. At the apex of power, isolation is not an accident. It is a deliberate choice. Every individual in your vicinity poses a potential threat, a hidden dagger waiting to strike. Imagine a world leader, surrounded by advisors, yet utterly alone in his thoughts. Loyalty is a fickle companion, swayed by circumstances, greed, and opportunity. If you think I'm being overly cynical, then perhaps you're beginning to grasp the reality of power. Cynicism serves as armor for the influential, while naivety often leads to an untimely demise. Let's rewind to Florence in the year 1530. Picture Niccolò Machiavelli, exiled and stripped of his influence, observing the Medici family tighten their grip on the city he once served. He wasn't merely philosophizing. He was drafting a survival manual for rulers who wished to avoid a grim fate. In chapter 26, he delivers a stark revelation. It is preferable to be feared than loved if one cannot achieve both. This phrase is often quoted, yet its true meaning eludes many. It's not about cruelty. It's about maintaining control. Love is unreliable, while fear is steadfast. Love seeks favors, but fear obeys commands. Love may whisper behind your back, whereas fear keeps watch over both itself and you. This principle forms the foundation of your protective fortress. Walls aren't built merely to keep enemies at bay. They serve to remind friends that you are no longer one of them. Those who ascend to power often grasp this instinctively. They don't need Machiavelli's teachings to understand it. Observe any CEO after a significant layoff, a president after a scandal, or a general following a betrayal. They don't display their emotions publicly. They remain stoic and composed. This isn't a sign of a lack of empathy. Rather, it's a recognition that showing vulnerability is tantamount to revealing weakness. And weakness, in this realm, is an invitation for predators to close in. Power isn't about charm, grand speeches, or photo opportunities. It's about restraint and the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. What if the secret to survival in leadership lies in calculated isolation? Consider Julius Caesar, who strode into the Senate surrounded by allies, only to be met with betrayal. 23 stab wounds later, his trusted friend, Brutus, delivered the final blow. Did Caesar fail to see the impending danger? Perhaps he did, or perhaps he chose to ignore it. This miscalculation is fatal. The moment you start to believe in your own invincibility, you set yourself on a path to ruin. Machiavelli would have advised against such complacency. Never sleep in the same room twice, never share a plate of food, and never trust those who call you family. Now, let's shift our focus to the present. Figures like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump all exemplify this pattern of isolation and controlled accessibility. The industry doesn't matter. The strategy remains the same. Every interaction carries risk, every conversation holds the potential for leaks, and every friendship could become a liability. If you think these leaders are paranoid, that's exactly the mindset that keeps them alive at the top. Loneliness may be an inevitable consequence of their position, but it's a price they willingly pay for sovereignty. To rule is to be alone, and if you desire companionship, stepping down is the only solution. What's often overlooked is that this solitude isn't imposed. It's a conscious choice. Powerful individuals engineer their isolation, severing ties before they can be severed in turn. They cease confiding in spouses after the first leak and distance themselves from childhood friends following betrayal. You might view this as tragic, but consider the alternative. Would you prefer to be loved and buried or feared and alive? Machiavelli provided the answer long ago. Let's take a modern example. Steve Jobs, a visionary genius admired by millions, yet trusted by few. Let's consider a contemporary figure. Steve Jobs, a brilliant innovator who captivated the world, yet found trust elusive. Delve into his life story, view his interviews, or listen to those who collaborated with him. He dismissed friends from his company. He belittled his allies. He transformed his inner circle with alarming frequency. Why did he do this? Because he understood that true innovation demands control. Control necessitates distance, and distance comes at a price. He didn't desire solitude. He opted for it, realizing that each time he allowed someone close, they hindered his pace, questioned his decisions, and ultimately posed a risk to his position. Remember the coup of 1985? His own company, his own vision. He was ousted. What followed? He retreated. He created anew. He returned. He reclaimed his throne. And he dismissed those who had dismissed him. From that point on, he kept everyone at arm's length. Not even his family was privy to his complete ambitions. His doctors were unaware of his grave condition until it was far too late. This isn't a tale of tragedy. This is a story of strategy. This is the essence of the fortress. You might wonder, but what about the cost? The emotional strain, the solitude, the restless nights, the paranoia. Indeed, all of it exists. But here's the harsh reality. Power is indifferent to your mental well-being. It pays no heed to your happiness. Its sole concern is your effectiveness, your grip on control, your ability to remain so unpredictable that no one dares to challenge you. Joy is for the average worker, for those who clock out at 5, embrace their families, and forget the office. Power, power is an unending battle, and in battle, softness is a luxury you cannot afford. Openness is a vulnerability. Understanding is a weakness. What you need is to be feared, respected, obeyed, and alone. Yet here lies the paradox. The deeper your solitude, the greater your power. Because isolation fosters clarity, distance cultivates objectivity, silence ensures control. When you're unencumbered by opinions, emotions, and friendships, you perceive the playing field with startling clarity. You begin to make colder, more decisive moves. You shift your focus from popularity to legacy, survival, and dominance. This is why monarchs don't have close friends. This is why military leaders don't disclose strategies over dinner. This is why the wealthy don't share their true thoughts on social media. They recognize every word as a weapon, every silence as a safeguard. Curious about the real secret? The most powerful individuals are not alone due to failures in relationships. They exist in solitude because they excel at strategy. They construct fortresses not from stone, but from silence, restraint, and ruthless prioritization. They understand that every person welcomed into their circle poses a potential risk to their power. Thus, they maintain distance. Not completely. Not ever. And this is not a display of weakness. It is the ultimate demonstration of strength. The strength to choose isolation over vulnerability, control over comfort, and survival over all else. What is the single biggest question this video leaves you with? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments. If you perceive this as cold, good, it is. But so is death, so is betrayal, so is the moment when your closest confidant divulges your secrets to your adversary for a better offer. You may think I'm exaggerating. Look around. How many leaders endure? How many CEOs remain in their positions? How many politicians retire on their own terms? Virtually none. The ones who do, the ones who endure, are those who grasp this lesson early on. They ceased their trust. They became vigilant. They erected barriers, not to shut the world out, but to secure their power within. Machiavelli didn't merely observe this dynamic. He advocated for it. He didn't advise cruelty. He advised intelligence. He didn't suggest being despised. He advocated for being feared because fear outlasts affection. He didn't recommend loneliness. He urged becoming untouchable. And the path to being untouchable requires being unreachable, unreadable, unpredictable, and alone. Do you still believe power is rooted in connection, influence, or networks? Think again. Power is about elimination, about stripping away variables, about eradicating threats, even those who wear smiles, particularly those who do. The fortress is not constructed from bricks. It is forged from silence, distance, and the resolve to stand alone, even amid applause. And if you're unprepared for that reality, then remain where you are. Because the summit is colder than you might imagine, emptier and quieter. And that's precisely how they prefer it. Here's what they won't reveal. Loneliness isn't merely a cost of power. It is its foundation. You don't lose people as you ascend. You shed them like excess weight, like anchors, like liabilities masquerading as loyalty. Every handshake you reciprocate, every favor you bestow, every secret you divulge is a binding thread. And as you rise higher, those threads morph into nooses. Machiavelli understood this. He witnessed rulers drown in the affections of their courts, suffocate in applause, and perish under the delusion that popularity equates to security. He observed them bleed out on marble floors, surrounded by the very men who toasted their triumphs the evening prior. And he penned his insights, not from sorrow, but with clarity. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy. Not just some, but all, especially those closest to you. Do you find that harsh? Good. Reality isn't wrapped in kindness. It is encased in consequences. And at the pinnacle, the consequence of misplaced trust is death, exile, disgrace, or a prison cell, or a boardroom ambush. It's irrelevant what century it is. It doesn't matter the title. The game remains unchanged. Only the tools have evolved. In the past, it was daggers. Today, it's leaked emails, whispered rumors, board votes, shareholder revolts, media smear campaigns. Same game, different instruments. And the players who endure, they don't play fair, they don't play kindly, they play alone. Now, let's examine Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen. She never married, she never had children. But what drove her to such choices? What did she understand about power that others did not? But what drove her to such choices? What did she understand about power that others did not? Surrounded by suitors, advisors, and nobles, all vying for her favor, her hand, and her throne, she knew exactly how to navigate this treacherous landscape. What did she do? She skillfully pitted them against one another, weaving a web of flirtation, delay, and empty promises. Marriage, she understood, would expose her to vulnerability. An heir would signal her arrival, and a husband would mean sharing authority. Thus, she opted for solitude, not out of coldness but from a place of strategic calculation. She transformed her loneliness into a source of power, leveraging her unmarried status while kings around her faced ruin at the hands of their own wives, sons, and brothers. For 45 years, she reigned, ultimately passing away alone, yet on her own terms, in her own bed, still commanding respect and fear, remaining untouchable. This isn't a tale of tragedy, it's one of mastery, showcasing the fortress strategy in action. The truth is, you don't need to be royalty to wield this strategy effectively. CEOs employ it, founders embrace it, generals and coaches utilize it. Anyone who has ever possessed real power and maintained it understands this principle. Proximity breeds danger. The moment someone believes they are entitled to your time, trust, or attention, they start to feel entitled to your position. And that sense of entitlement, it's the breeding ground for betrayal. You might assume your chief financial officer is loyal until a better offer comes along. You might think your vice president won't leak your strategies until her ego takes a hit. You might even believe your closest friend wouldn't betray you until the price is right. Machiavelli didn't claim that people are inherently evil. Rather, he recognized their self-interest. Self-interest is indifferent to friendship. It seeks advantage, survival, and gain. If betraying you serves their interests, they'll do so with a smile, a handshake, and perhaps even tears. You want proof? Look no further than Sam Bankman-Fried. A young, charismatic figure, he was surrounded by friends while managing a billion-dollar empire. He trusted everyone, operating with open offices, transparent books, and an open heart. And where is he now? Behind bars, with his best friends testifying against him, and his inner circle flipping like pancakes. His reputation lies in ruins. Why? Because he believed in collaboration, transparency, and trust. Noble ideals, perhaps, but naive. Absolutely. Machiavelli would have advised him to lock the doors, limit access, and assume everyone is lying, especially those who call him brother.
But by then, it was too late. Now, let's turn our focus to Warren Buffett. In his 90s, he stands as one of the wealthiest individuals alive, still in control, still respected, still feared. What does his office resemble? A shoebox. No assistants hovering, no entourage, no public relations team scripting his every move. He answers his own phone, reads his own mail, and makes his own calls. He shares his thoughts with almost no one. He enjoys golf with friends, yet never discusses business deals. He grants interviews but keeps his strategies close to his chest. He smiles for the cameras, but his eyes remain vigilant, always calculating. He didn't amass his wealth by seeking popularity. He did so by being unreadable, by remaining solitary even in a crowded room. That's the essence of the fortress. It's not constructed of bricks and mortar, but of silence, restraint, and the discipline to keep others out of your mind. And therein lies the true secret. The fortress is not physical, it's psychological. It's the ability to sit among people and feel nothing, to hear of betrayal and show no reaction, to face threats with utter stillness. That's where true power resides, not in shouting, charisma, or grand speeches, but in silence, stillness, and an unreadable demeanor. This is what instills hesitation in others. This is what makes them wonder and keeps them from acting against you, for they cannot fathom what you know or what you might do. Uncertainty becomes your most potent weapon, and solitude is where that uncertainty is forged. Do you think powerful individuals lack emotions? They possess them. They simply choose not to display them. Not because they are devoid of feelings, but because emotions can be exploited. Tears, weaknesses, anger, predictability, joy, distraction, love, and vulnerability. Each feeling is a potential crack in one's armor. At the pinnacle, those cracks can be filled with knives. Thus, they learn to bury their emotions deep beneath smiles, handshakes, and silence. Does this seem inhuman? Perhaps. But so is the world in which they operate. If you seek humanity, volunteer, hug your dog, or write poetry. In the realm of power, humanity is not rewarded. Control is. And control demands detachment. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Those who yearn for connection rarely ascend to the top. Not genuinely, at least. Not if they intend to remain there. Connection necessitates compromise, and compromise is where the downfall begins. You start heeding the advice of others. You begin to placate shareholders. You become preoccupied with public sentiment. You start placing harmony above victory. At that point, you cease to lead. You merely negotiate. You no longer rule. You manage. And managers are easily replaced. Leaders, however, replace others, but only if they are willing to stand alone. Only if they are prepared to make decisions that others will not. Only if they are willing to be hated, feared, misunderstood, and alone. Consider Churchill. Now beloved, he was once loathed, yet he emerged victorious in war only to be voted out. Why? Because he was ruthless, uncompromising, and unreadable. People didn't comprehend him, didn't trust him, didn't like him, yet they needed him. When they no longer required him, they cast him aside. He recognized this inevitability. He didn't weep, didn't plead, didn't campaign. He walked away in solitude, fully aware that power is rented, not owned. And the rent is paid in solitude, sacrifice, and the willingness to be unloved as long as one remains necessary. This is the final layer. The most powerful individuals are not merely alone. They actively choose to be misunderstood. They cultivate an air of mystery. They speak in riddles, delay their answers, and vanish for days. They refuse to provide explanations. Why? Because clarity equates to vulnerability. The moment people believe they understand you, they start to think they can predict you. But what happens when unpredictability becomes your greatest ally? What if the very act of remaining enigmatic allows you to maintain control over your destiny? The answers lie just ahead. But what happens when unpredictability becomes your greatest ally? What if the very act of remaining enigmatic allows you to maintain control over your destiny? The answers lie just ahead. Once others can decipher your moves, they can easily outmaneuver you. Thus, the strategy is to remain elusive, stay detached, keep your thoughts to yourself, and allow them to speculate. Let them engage in hushed conversations and harbor fears about what they cannot comprehend. This is the true essence of power, not the throne you sit upon, nor the title you hold, but the profound silence that envelops you. Machiavelli didn't merely advocate for being feared, he emphasized the importance of avoiding hatred. The key to this lies in being untouchable, unreachable, and unreadable. You don't need to be a tyrant or a monster. Instead, embody distance and solitude. Hatred arises from familiarity, disappointment, and unmet expectations. In contrast, awe is born from mystery and the unknown. This sense of awe is what safeguards you. It's what sustains your authority. So, the next time you observe a leader standing solitary at a podium, silent in the wake of a scandal, or unreadable during a crisis, resist the urge to feel pity. Do not label them as cold or question their lack of friends. Instead, recognize the truth. They never truly had friends in the conventional sense. They possess allies, tools, and assets. But friends are burdens. At the pinnacle of power, you don't accumulate liabilities, you eliminate them. The fortress is not constructed to keep the world at bay. It's designed to safeguard your power. The very mortar of this fortress is composed of silence and distance, a willingness to stand alone even when the world clamors for your presence, even when your heart yearns for connection, and even when you feel weary or afraid. Power is indifferent to your humanity. It demands control, and control is a solitary pursuit. So, reflect on this. Do you seek love, or do you desire power? The two are mutually exclusive at the summit of influence. To survive in this realm, you cannot embrace both. Machiavelli understood this, and history confirms it. Each individual who remains at the pinnacle lives this reality daily, alone, silent, unwavering, and untouchable. This isn't a cautionary tale. It's an invitation to make a choice, to gain insight, and to construct your own fortress, not from fear, but from strategy and clarity. Understand that power doesn't favor the likable. It gravitates toward the unreadable, the distant, and the solitary. If you're prepared to embrace this truth, then welcome to the true game. The one rarely discussed, the one played in silence, and the one won not through camaraderie but through the strength of your fortress. If you appreciated this deep investigative dive into the unknown, hit the like button. If you need a constant source of profound questions and scientific puzzles, subscribe now to secure your access. And in the next video, we'll discover how Machiavelli turned enemies into power, his 13 ruthless laws,